Lin Hao stood on the cliff, and the stones under his feet were blown down by the wind, making a crisp sound, as if mocking him for his inability to do anything. Behind, several large and thick Hanzi were approaching step by step. The one with a man full of facial hair, named Wang Dahu, is a famous bully in the village. He relies on his skills in fist and foot, and he has never bullied others less often. Lin Hao, run away, why don't you run away? Wang Dahu grinned, smiling like a wolf, and was holding a thick wooden stick in his hand. Last time I warned you, don't peek at my sister for a bath, your ears are hurt, right? Lin Hao bit his teeth tightly, his face was blue and purple, and blood was still hanging on the corners of his mouth. He didn't peek at it. It was obvious that he accidentally glanced at the river when he passed by, but was caught by the helper and forced him to admit it. Who in the village dares to offend Wang Dahu? No one can help him, he can only be beaten. I didn't do that. Lin Hao yelled, his voice trembling, but his eyes were full of stubbornness. You just want to find fault, come on, act. Yeah, are you still stubborn? Wang Dahu sneered and winked at the few little brothers around him, put him out, see if he can still be stubborn. As soon as several Hanzis slammed up, Lin Hao was not the opponent at all. After several punches, he was beaten back and left. He was unstable and stepped on the air, and half of his body was on the cliff. He felt a flash in his heart, it was over, he really died here this time. Ha, let's go on, a little mess. Wang Dahu kicked Lin Hao in the chest. Lin Hao let out a cry, and the whole person fell down from the cliff. There was only a whisper in his ears. His body kept hitting the stone on the cliff, making him almost faint. But just when he thought he would die, a crooked neck tree in the air hooked his clothes and stopped the head of the wall. Lin Hao hung on the tree and looked down. There was a deep valley below, with his legs scared. God, don't you want me to die? He gasped, gritted his teeth and climbed up the tree to fuck him, leaning against a small platform on the cliff to stand firm, his body trembling. On the above, Wang Dahu's voice was still reported, this kid will definitely be lifeless if he falls down. Let's go back and don't waste time. Lin Hao heard it, and a fire ignited in his heart. No life? I want to live. He lowered his head and checked. Although his body was full of injuries, he did not break his arms and legs, but the foot kicked in his chest still hurt. He sat down against the cliff, ready to rest for a while before thinking about how to climb up. But at this moment, a stone on his foot suddenly eased, revealing a small black hole. Lin Hao was stunned for a moment, and reached out to touch it. There was an old book inside. The cover was covered with dust. There were a few words that could be seen: Tiangang Ju. What is this? Lin Hao turned it out curiously, with dense small characters inside, and some strange poses. Although he didn't know many words, he could guess that these were probably some kind of martial arts secrets. The old man in the village often said that there are some lost learning in the world. If you get it, you can turn over and become a big deal. How can you tell me that this is it? His heart beats faster. Although he was half believing and half doubting, he still sat down according to the method in the book, closed his eyes and tried to breathe. At first I didn't feel anything, but after a while, my dantian suddenly felt hot, and a warm current bleeded from my lower abdomen, wandering around my limbs and bones. The wounds on my body didn't hurt so much. The trough is really useful. Lin Hao was shocked, his eyes lit up, and he continued to practice according to the book. Although he didn't know anything about stools, this secret book was written simply and roughly, just by following the posture and breathing, he gradually felt it. I don't know how long it took, but when he opened his eyes, it was dark. But he found that he was relaxed, as if he had broken his body and changed his bones. He punched the stone next to him and smashed a small hole. This is too awesome. Lin Hao looked at his fist and couldn't believe it. He is a mountain village boy who usually carries water for free, but now he can actually crack the stone. If he is used to beat someone, then wouldn't he punch each one? Thinking of this, the fire in his heart became hot again. Wang Dahu, please wait for me. I will definitely crawl back and beat you up and find your teeth. But this cliff is really too high, and you can't get it if you climb up for a while. Lin Hao looked around and found a small path next to the platform leading to a deeper place. He felt relieved, and with the secret book in mind, he decided to explore the way first, saying that he might find an exit. It took me midnight to the night. The road was full of thorns, and there were several wild wolves staring at him. Fortunately, he practiced Tiangang decision and became much stronger. He kicked the wolf with one foot and killed the other several others. When it was dawn, he finally saw a mountain road leading up to it. Although it was so steep, there was hope at least. I'm so lucky. Lin Hao gritted his teeth, spent the power of the ox and tigers, and finally crawled back to the village. He was covered in mud and his clothes were torn like beggars, but his eyes were full of cruelty. Several old men at the entrance of the village saw him and were stunned. Lin Hao? You are not, haven't you fallen off the cliff? Why are you still alive? God won't accept me. Lin Hao grinned and walked straight to Wang Dahu's house without saying much. On the way, he met brother Zhang Jinyo. This guy is tall and his brain is not very strong, but he is really speaking to Lin Hao. Seeing Lin Hao's wolf, Zhang Jinyo became anxious. Haozi, what's wrong with you? That bastard Wang Dahu bullied you again? It's okay, brother Nyo, accompany me to the Wang family and try to be fair. Lin Hao patted his shoulder, his eyes flashing. Zhang Jinyo came to the scene as soon as he heard this. Okay, go beat up that son. I've long been disgusted with him. The man went straight to Wang Dahu's house, and when he arrived at the door, he heard a laughter coming from it. Wang Dahu was drinking with several younger brothers in the yard, and there were a few chicken legs on the table. It seemed that life was very prosperous. Who? Are you doing something in broad daylight? Wang Dahu turned his head and his face changed. Lin Hao? Are you dead? I can't die. Lin Hao walked into the yard with a sneer, and Zhang Jinyo followed behind, lifting his sleeves and making a frustrated. Wang Dahu put down his wine glass, stood up, and mocked her face. I'm going to come back after I've been forced to do anything, but dare to come and ask for trouble? Aren't you afraid of being thrown away again? Take me? Today I will let you know who to throw me. Lin Hao's voice fell, his figure flashed, and he rushed over directly. He used all the skills he had practiced according to Tiangang at this moment, so fast that Wang Dahu had no reaction at all. Bang! A punch hit Wang Dahu's face. The guy was beaten out and hit the stone table in the yard, and the table was broken. Trouble! The few little brothers next to him were all dumbfounded. When did Lin Hao become so fierce? What are you still fucking me in a daze? Wang Dahu got up, his face as if it was a pig, and he spitted blood in his mouth, trembling with anger. Several younger brothers came over, but Lin Hao was not panicked at all. After practicing Tiangang's decision, he felt that his body was full of atrophy. With one grab, he twisted the arm of a gang, causing the man to scream. Another person wanted to steal the cat, but was slapped by Zhang Jinyo and hit the ground and couldn't get up. Who else? Lin Hao stood in the middle of the yard. Although he was still injured, his temper was as hard as a mountain. His eyes stared at Wang Dahu as if he wanted to eat people. Wang Dahu was frightened, but he was still stubborn. What kind of fucking medicine did you take? Why can you suddenly get this shot? Medical? What I took is the bitterness you gave me. Lin Hao approached step by step, grabbed a wooden stick on the ground, and smashed it directly. Wang Dahu wanted to hide, but he was not in time. He was hit by his shoulder and kneeled on the ground in pain, sweating heavily. Stop fighting, brother, I'm wrong. Wang Dahu finally took a soft face, and his nose and eyes were slight, and he was not as good as a tyrant. Lin Hao snorted coldly and threw the wooden stick around. Remember, if you dare to move me again in the future, or to motivate people from the village, I will wipe you out. After saying that, he turned around and left. Zhang Jinyo followed behind, and walked around and laughed. Haozi, what's going on with you? It's so awesome. Lin Hao grinned, without saying anything, and he secretly swears in his heart, this is just the beginning. What is a small character like Wang Dahu? What he wants is a bigger stage, and those who look down on him have to pay for it. But at this moment, he looked down at the secret book in it. There was a line of small words on the cover, as if it had just appeared. The first time Tiangang was formed, the road to Blade can be opened. The road to Blade? What does it mean? Lin Hao browed and felt in his heart that there might be a bigger secret behind this secret. He clasped the secret book and looked up at the mountains far away, his eyes becoming more and more stable. Since God gave him this opportunity, he had to seize it, no matter what path it was, just that. Lin Hao stood at the entrance of the village, and the mountains far away looked particularly good under the sun. He looked down at the old Tiangang Ju in his heart, and his heart seemed to be ignited. I just dealt with that bastard Wang Dahu. Although I spoke out, I was still far away. He knew that the real world was outside, and there were even greater grudges to be reported, and even more powerful enemies were waiting for him to beat him up. Howsy, what are you doing? I just beat that guy up and it's really relieved. Let's go and have some food to give me some wishes. Zhang Jinyo patted Lin Hao's shoulder, grinning like a silly man, full of joy. Lin Hao returned to his senses, put away the secret book, and pointed him, okay, brother Nyo, I'll help you today, let's fill your stomach first. However, I don't plan to stay in the village for too long. I have to go and share the outside world. Zhang Jinyo heard it and his eyes lit up. Hanjiangu? Okay. I've wanted to go out and see what the mess in the village is about. Compared with those big guys, we can't keep silent. Howsy, how do you say you're going to fuck you? Lin Hao's heart warmed up. Although Zhang Jinyo and other guys were not spiritual, they were really saying that to him. He grinned and said, okay, let's do some big things together. However, the world is not a joke. We have to do some skills and equipment first, and we can't just rely on the fist to force it. The man said that he walked towards the village, found a small winery, ordered 2 bowls of hot beef noodles, sat down and ate and chatted. Lin Hao whispered a low voice and briefly said that he had pulled the secrets under the cliff. Of course, he didn't mention too much details, he just said that he had practiced a little bit of effort and became much more powerful. Zhang Jinyu was stunned for a moment when he heard it, and his chopsticks were all stopped in the air. Boat, Howsy, your energy is too outrageous, right? Why didn't that book fall on me? Haha, but you are so fierce now, take me to fly together. Don't worry, brother Nyo, as long as I have a way, I will never let you down. Lin Hao patted his chest, his eyes fixed. He knew in his heart that the road to the world was difficult to walk, and many Iron Brothers were better than being alone. People ate and drank enough, and the sky became darker. Lin Hao decided to set out tomorrow morning and go to the nearby Qingshi town to inquire about the news. Although the place is not big, it is said that there is a small door school called the Iron Fist Door. It usually charges some protection fees and stocks up a lot of good things. It is said that it may be able to obtain some resources and improve its efforts. Early the next morning, the man packed his bags and set off on the road with dry rice and water. Qingshi town is not far away from the village, and it takes only half a day to walk on the mountain road. On the way, Zhang Jinyu hummed a little tune, looking particularly excited. Howsy, you heard that the people in the boxing door are quite generous. Can we really handle them? Lin Hao sneered and said, She? No matter how weak you are, you must have real skills. We won't cause trouble, but don't be afraid of trouble. When you get to the place, you will first check the situation and find a chance to start. At noon, the man finally arrived in Qingshi town. The town was coming and going, and it was very warm. There were many people like the Jianghu people on the road, with swords hanging around their waists and their eyes were alert. Lin Hao and Zhang Hanyu were dressed in a broken way, and they looked like they were from the countryside, which attracted a lot of attention. Hey, 2 local buns, what are you here to fuck? Are you looking for a beating? A thin monkey-like man held the way, full of disdain, and was still holding a short knife in his hand. Zhang Hanyu came up with a fire, and he clenched his fists and wanted to move. Lin Hao grabbed him tightly and said in a low voice, Brother Nyo, don't move, let's figure out the situation first. Then he turned around and smiled at the thin monkey, Brother, we are just passing by. I heard that the Iron Fists are quite terrible, and I want to see them. The thin monkey heard it and curled his lips. Look at me? You are so sour, but also worthy of it. The floor plate of the Iron Fist door is not indiscriminate, it is far away, don't worry. Lin Hao didn't say a word, pulled Zhang Haniu and opened the gang, found a way to sit down, pretending to drink tea, and actually heard the people around him in his ears. Sure enough, it was not long before I heard a few Chinese men chatting about iron boxing doors, saying that they had recently got a batch of good iron mines, prepared to build weapons, and stocked up a lot of medicines, planning to sell high prices. Iron minerals? Medicinal materials? This is a good thing. Lin Hao was moved. These resources were simply a timely help to him and Zhang Jinyo. What you need most in martial arts is to strengthen your body, medicine can help you, and weapons are the key to improving your combat effectiveness. Brother Nyo, let's touch it tonight and get something out. What's the matter? Lin Hao's voice was low, and his eyes were flashing. Zhang Xinius slapped his thigh and said, Damn it. I've been dead for a long time. Tell me, what should I do? When the night was late, people quietly dived into the backyard of the Iron Fist door. Although the iron boxing door is a small door, the guard is still very strict. There are 2 large Han stations at the entrance, and there is only 1 dog watching in the backyard. Lin Hao winked, and Zhang Haniu threw it over directly on the stone head. The dog ran away without saying a word. In! Lin Hao shouted softly, and the man flipped through the wall into the yard, and touched a warehouse in the moonlight. It was indeed full of iron mines and medicine, and there were also a few swords that looked pretty good. It's been financed. Zhang Jinyo's eyes straightened, he grabbed a pack of medicine and stuffed it into it. Lin Hao was not polite, so he picked up the long knife that was handed on his body and took a few bags of medicine. But at this moment, a sound of footsteps suddenly came from outside. Who is there? A rough roar sounded, and then the torch lit up, and several disciples of the Iron Fist Gate rushed in. Run! Lin Hao reacted very quickly and pulled Zhang Haniu and rushed back. But there were so many people on the other side that they blocked the exit in the blink of an eye. The head was a squid with a beard, full of faces, and a big trumpet was in his hand. 2 small pieces, dare to steal things from our Iron Fist doors, and seek death. Stop talking, come. Lin Hao gritted his teeth, pulled out the long knife he was holding, his body sank, and he sank into the starting move in Tiangangjin. Although he only practiced the first level, his strength and speed were much stronger than ordinary people. With a knife, he brought a sound. Bang! Lin Hao hurriedly dodged his body, and the knife slashed on the other party's arm, and the blood was poured out. The guy yelled in pain and all the jokes fell off. Bored, this kid has a little door. Several other disciples saw this and stood up on the horse and slammed the sword. Zhang Haniu was not vague, and rushed in with bare hands, carried a knife, grabbed a person and threw it out several meters away, and smashed half of the wall. Brother Nyo, fuck you beautifully. Lin Hao yelled. Although the sword technique was a mess, he was shaking several people with the power of Tiangangjin. For a while, the sound of killing in the yard was shocking, the torches shaking, and the scene was in a mess. But just as the man was about to suddenly burst into an area, a cold smile suddenly came from afar. Humph, 2 young boys dare to act wildly on my floor. Lin Hao's heart tightened and turned around and saw an old man wearing a red robe walking over, full of scars on his face. His eyes were like a poisonous snake, and his body was filled with a hair-growing atmosphere. The person from the iron boxing door saw the old man, and Lima lowered his head and shouted, Go to the messenger of the Blood Knife Patriarch, Lord Red Knife. The person from the Blood Sword Ancestor? Lin Hao's pupils shrank, and his heart sank. He heard the name of the ancestor of Blood Knife. This guy is a notorious demon in the world, with countless minions under his hands. He didn't expect that the Iron Fist door would actually connect with this helper. Boy, it seems that you are good at your skills. Unfortunately, you have to die here today. Chi Dao sneered, slapped his hand, and several hidden weapons flew out of his sleeves, slamming Lin Hao's face. Haozi, be careful. Zhang Xinya roared, and afterwards, he forced himself to hold the hidden weapon with his shoulders. He hummed in pain, and blood flowed down his arms. "Brother Nyo!" Lin Hao's eyes were red, and anger broke out in his heart. He bit his teeth tightly, suddenly inserted his long knife to the ground, sat down with his legs, and recalled the second level of Tiangang Ju. Life and death are at the center of his mind, and he can't see that much, and he will even break through this layer even if he fights his life. "You are looking for death, how dare you distract yourself?" Chi Dao snorted coldly, pulled out a knife, and the blood on the blade flickered directly at Lin Hao's brain. "Haozi!" Zhang Jinyo wanted to snatch over, but was slapped by several disciples of the Iron Fist, and could not stop him at all. He was about to hit Lin Hao with a knife. At this moment, Lin Hao suddenly opened his eyes, and a gleam burst out from his eyes. A hot airflow from his dantian instantly opened, storming his whole body. He could only feel that his body strength was surging, as if he could smash the mountain with one punch. "Swallow!" Lin Hao growled, grabbed it with a single hand, and directly grabbed the knife that the red sword was slashed down, and forced the blade to change shape. Red Blade's pupils shrank violently, and without reacting, Lin Hao's other punch had already been smashed out, like a cannon, hitting his chest. Puff! The red sword sprayed out a mouthful of blood, and the whole person flew out, crashed into a wall, and he couldn't even move while lying there. The whole scene was dead silent, and the people in the iron boxing door were stunned. Is this still a human? The red blade is a fierce attack under the seat of the blood blade. Why was it wiped out with one punch? Who else? Lin Hao stood up, looking like a wild beast in his head, his eyes swept past everyone on the scene. The disciples of the Iron Fist were so scared that their legs were soft and they kept retreating. "Haozi, are you too fierce?" Zhang Xinya grinned. Although his shoulders were still bleeding, his face was full of excitement. He slapped Lin Hao on the back. "I just knew that you were not simple." Lin Hao gasped and grinned. "Brother Nyo, is it okay? I just told you to beat that for a while, otherwise I really wouldn't have a chance to break through. What do you thank me? Who are we with? But what should we do next? The people of the Blood Sword Ancestor are not easy to mess with. This old man must have a backup plan." Zhang Jinyo slapped his head, looking at the red sword lying on the ground. His eyes were a little worried. Lin Hao narrowed his eyes, looked down at the red knife, and said coldly, "Old guy, go back and tell the ancestor of Blood Knife. My name is Lin Hao. This matter is not over today. I will come to my door in the future." After saying that, he pulled up Zhang Hainyu, carried the medicine and weapons he had just snatched, and rushed out the fist door without looking back. Behind, the red sword pierced and got up, staring at Lin Hao's back with resentment, gritting his teeth and slashing. "Lin Hao. I remember this, the blood sword door is already determined to you." Lin Hao and Zhang Hainyu ran a few miles in one breath, confirming that no one caught up with him, so they stopped and found a cave to rest. The night was dark, and the wolf howls came from a distance. Lin Hao leaned against the cave wall and took out Tiangang Ju to read it. He found that there was another line of small words on the book page. "The second level of Tiangang, the force breaks through the 1,000 horns, the road to blades is one step closer." It's the road to the blade again. Lin Hao burst into tears, and he felt in his heart that this secret book and the Jadian blade in the past would definitely not be related to it. Since the blood sword ancestor has come to the door, the more troubles will come. "Brother Nyo, we have to speed up our pace. The water in the rivers and lakes is deeper than I thought." Lin Hao turned his head and looked at Zhang Jinyo, his eyes burning with fighting spirit. Lin Hao leaned against the stone wall of the cave, holding the old book Tiangang Ju tightly in his hand, and his brain was full of surprises from that battle. He glanced at Zhang Xinya next to him. The guy was simply wrapping the wound on his shoulder with a cloth slat, grinning as if nothing had happened. "Brother Nyo, why are you hurt? That hidden weapon is not simple just now, don't force it." Lin Hao pointed his eyebrows, with a little concern in his temperament. "Hey, what's this little injury? I'm thick-skinned and thick-skinned, it'll be fine in 2 days." Zhang Xinya patted his chest, and immediately put down a low voice, "But, Haozi, the people of the Blood Knife Ancestor are really not easy to mess with." We snatched the stuff from the Iron Fist door and wiped out the red sword. "We are afraid that we will be targeted next." Lin Hao pointed his head and his eyes sank. "If you are on the spot, just keep your eyes on it. I'm afraid he will be furious. No matter how awesome the ancestor of Blood Sword, he must have the real ability to come and find me. I don't believe it. If we are afraid of our skills, we can still be shocked by them." He said it hard, but he also understood that this time he was so silenced that there must be troubles in the back. As he was speaking, a rapid sound of footsteps suddenly came from afar, and he growled in a few sounds. Lin Hao felt nervous. Lima stood up and said in a low voice, "Someone is coming, Brother Niu, be prepared, don't make a sound." Zhang Jinyo didn't say anything, grabbed the iron stick that was just snatched from the side and hid at the entrance of the cave. Lin Hao took out his long knife, held his breath, and stared at the outside of the hole. Under the moonlight, several black shadows approached quickly, and the one with a tall and thin head was actually holding a broken map in his hand and muttering something in his mouth. "Boss, the news should be correct. The rope of the Jadian blade is nearby. If that magic weapon can be found, we will find it." A short and fat man behind the tall and thin man was full of his face. His voice was very low, but he was still heard clearly by Lin Hao. "Zhu Tian Blade?" Lin Hao was shocked. He was familiar with this name. The old man in the village often said that this is the most powerful magic weapon in the world. If he had it, he could defeat the world. No one could defeat him. "I didn't expect that I could hear the trace here today." He winked at Zhang Heinyu, signaling not to act first and to hear what else could this helper say. The tall and thin man flipped through the map and continued, "I heard that this magic weapon was hidden in an ancient cave deep in the Black Wind, and there were many people guarding it nearby. Even the Blood Sword ancestor sent people there. We should be quick, but if we are late, we won't be able to get it." "Has the Blood Sword ancestor also flipped in?" Lin Hao's eyebrows burst into tears, and a fire ignited in his heart. It seems that this Jadian blade is not simple, and even the old guy is very jealous, indicating that this thing really has the ability to go against the will of heaven. He glanced down at the Tiangang Ju in his hand, and suddenly remembered the small word "the road to blade." How could this secret book have any connection with the magic weapon? "Haozi, what should I do? Do we want to go and have a look with the magic weapon in our mouths?" Zhang Jinyo softly, his eyes full of stings. Lin Hao gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "Follow. There are not many opportunities like this. If the Jadian blade can really get it, we don't have to be afraid of the Blood Sword ancestor. Let's hang it behind first, don't be discovered." The man quietly packed up his things and followed in the night. The black wind lingered from the cave where they were hiding, and then they arrived after crossing the two mountains. The land here is full of strange rocks, and the night wind blows like ghosts crying and wolf howling, making people's skin numb. Lin Hao and Zhang Jinyo followed the helper all the way, and finally saw a secret ancient cave deep in the deep. There were more than a dozen Jianghu Hanzi outside the entrance, each with a strong atmosphere, and it was obviously all with divine weapons. "Bok, there are so many people, what should I do?" Zhang Jinyo hid behind the stone and couldn't help but mutter. Lin Hao narrowed his eyes and looked around. He found that several people near the entrance of the cave were wearing blood-red robes and holding swords in his hands, which were similar to those of Red Knife. He was probably the subordinate of the Blood Knife ancestor. His heart sank and he snorted coldly. It seems that the old thing of the Blood Knife ancestor is really not simple, and his hands are reaching here. "Brother Niu, let's wait first, see how calm you are, and find a chance to start." But before they could think of a solution, a violent response suddenly burst out from the entrance of the cave, like a mountain shattering, and then a dazzling light shone out from the cave, surging into the sky. Everyone was stunned for a moment, and immediately exploded. They shouted, "The magic weapon is here. Hurry up. Let's go." Lin Hao gritted his teeth, growled, and pulled Zhang Heinyu and rushed over. The scene is in a group, with dozens of people stalking together, swords and shadows, and the smell of blood instantly spread. In the middle of the cave, a giant blade with cold light was inserted on the stone platform, and a strange airflow was surrounded, as if it could suck people in. Lin Hao realized at a glance that this is the Jadian blade in the past, and just looking at it makes people feel hot and blood boil. This thing must be mine. Lin Hao bit his teeth tightly and wanted to draw the knife when he ran over, but he didn't touch the hilt. A strong recoil force directly opened him and hit the whole wall. He almost vomited blood in his chest. "Ha, boy, the Jadian blade is not something you can touch with." A cold voice sounded, and an old man walked into the entrance of the cave. He had white hair, his face was covered with scars, and his eyes were like a poisonous snake. He was the ancestor of the blood sword himself. Behind him, he was followed by more than a dozen subordinates, and he was so arrogant that he blocked the entrance of the hole. Blood sword ancestor? Lin Hao felt nervous, and he didn't expect that this old guy would come out of his own. He stood up, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and said hard, "Old thing, anyone who can get this magic weapon can get it. What can't be mine? Just hate you?" The blood knife ancestor sneered, and with a wave of his hand, several subordinates rushed over, and the sword flashed and took Lin Hao's vital point. Lin Hao reacted very quickly, and he dodged aside, slapped out a long knife, slashed a man's weapon, punched the man in the chest with a backhand, and directly flew the other party. "Brother Nyo, help me hold these fish, I'll try that knife." Lin Hao yelled, and Zhang Xinya stood up and grabbed the iron stick and rushed into the crowd. He was as powerful as a cow. After several sticks, he smashed several disciples from the blood knife gate to the ground. Lin Hao took advantage of the trouble and rushed to the stone platform again. This time he did not move directly, but sat down with his legs, closed his eyes and turned to Tiangang Ju, and recalled the words on the secret book in his brain. A hot stream flowed from the dantian, slamming his arms straight through his arms. He suddenly clenched his eyes and pressed his hand on the hilt of the Jadian blade. Buzz! A low voice, and the airflow around the Jadian blade suddenly stormed, as if torn apart everything. But Lin Hao bit his teeth tightly and held the hilt tightly. The breath of Tiangang Ju on his body and the cold light on the blade actually began to rush together, and there was a kind of indescribable connection. How is that possible? The blood sword ancestor's pupils shrank and his face changed drastically. This kid can actually activate the breath of the Jadian blade. Is it related to the lost Tiangang secret book? Lin Hao's ears were about to hear this and his heart was shocked. It turned out that Tiangang Ju and the Yutian blade really had a source of purity. He couldn't think too much, and shouted suddenly, "Get up!" He burst into strength and pulled the Jadian blade out of the stone platform. As soon as the blade came out, the cold light was magnificent, and the entire ancient cave was illuminated as white. "Yutsao, Haozi, you are so good." Zhang Xinya looked away, roaring loudly, but the next second, he cut his knife at him at the same time, and made several blood marks on his back. He snorted, fell to the ground, gritted his teeth and snatched the iron stick, and shouted, "Haozi, run quickly, don't worry about me." "Brother Nyo!" Lin Hao's eyes were red. He wanted to slam the Jadian blade, but the ancestor of blood sword sneered, his figure flashed, and directly pressed in front of him. His palm slapped, and a black air squirted directly into Lin Hao's face. "Boy, hand over the magic weapon, I may be able to save you." The ancestor of blood knife was cold and his palm was as sharp as a knife. Lin Hao couldn't hide at all. He was forced to get a slap, and his chest was slapped, and blood was sprayed out. "Give me? I'll let you know who is going to." Lin Hao gritted his teeth and stood up with great force. The Jadian blade sounded low in his hand, as if he felt his anger, and the cold light on the blade stormed. He slashed out with a sudden knife, and the sword was as hot as a rainbow, and he forced the blood sword ancestor to retreat for a few steps, and even the ground was slashed with a deep crack. Is this the true power of the Yutian blade? The ancestor of the blood sword had a blue face. It was obvious that Lin Hao could expose part of the power of the magic weapon. He gritted his teeth and snorted coldly, "Good boy, I will let you go today, but this account must be settled. Let's go." After saying that, he swung his hand and quickly withdrew with his subordinates, obviously not wanting to fight against Lin Hao, who was holding the magic weapon. The other people in the cave saw the situation and even dispersed, and no one dared to make the idea of Jadian blade again. Lin Hao gasped heavily and half knelt on the ground. The Jadian blade was inserted into his body, and the sword was still hiding the cold light. He turned to look at Zhang Heinyu, seeing that this guy was covered in blood and could hardly move on the ground, and his heart felt sad. "Brother Niu, hold on, I will take you out." Lin Hao gritted his teeth, raised Zhang Heinyu with his back, and walked out of the ancient cave step by step with the Yutian blade. In the night, the black wind blew particularly cold, but a fire was burning in his heart. "The blood sword ancestor, we have never finished this grudge. And Zhang Heinyu's life must be saved even if he tries his life." Lin Hao walked out of the black wind with his hair on his back, and the morning light was overwhelming, unable to hide his blood and fatigue. The Jadian blade was held tightly in his hand, and the cold light on the blade appeared in no time, as if he was whispering an unfinished battle. Although Zhang Heinyu was not very injured, he could still hum a few times, which proved that his life was still there. "Haozi, you are so fucking great. You got the Jadian blade. I'm so scared, it's worth it." Zhang Heinyu smiled hard, his voice as weak as if he would be angry at any time. "Stop talking, Brother Niu, hold on. I finally rescued you, but I didn't plan to let you die halfway." Lin Hao gritted his teeth, walked constantly, heading towards the nearest town at the foot of the mountain. He knew that Zhang Heinyu could not afford to be injured and had to find a doctor as soon as possible. When they arrived in the town, Lin Haowagwang only had a few copper plates left on his body, so he finally asked an old doctor. The doctor checked and said with a snail of eyebrows, "This brother is not injured, has lost too much blood, and is poisoned. He has to use good medicine to nourish himself, otherwise it will be difficult to protect his life." Poison? Lin Hao's heart sank. Lima remembered the strange and black air on the swords under the ancestor of the blood sword. It was probably because this thing was causing trouble. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth and said, "Doctor, any medicine is fine. I'll get the single seeds for a lot of money." The doctor snatched his head and said excitedly, "There are medicines, but the price is not cheap. You are dressed in this way. I'm afraid you can't get this money, right?" Lin Hao lowered his head and looked at his torn clothes, then at the Jadian blade in his hand, and felt a little nervous. "If you have no money, you have to have it. Doctor, you should treat it first, and I will do the money." After saying that, he turned around and left, leaving a sentence, "Brother Niu, wait for me to come back, don't let him hang it first." Walking out of the hospital, Lin Hao's brain flew quickly. The fastest way to make money now is to find some people in the world to beat you, but this method is too slow and it is easy to cause trouble. He suddenly remembered the medicines and iron mines that were stocked up in the iron boxing door. Although he had bought a batch last time, there must be still stock in the warehouse. Since the blood sword ancestors' subordinates have withdrawn, the iron fist door is now 80% empty, so I can just put it in another pen. After making up his mind, Lin Hao returned to Qingshi town at night and dived into the backyard of the iron fist door. Sure enough, when the door sent people to the roof, there were only a few small guards left to guard, and they were not his opponent at all. After solving the problem of guarding the law, Lin Hao directly cleared the medicine in the warehouse, took a few pieces of iron and mines, and prepared to go back to find the iron and craft a handful of weapons. Back in the town, after handing over the medicine, Lima, the doctor, began to treat Zhang Heinyu. After a few days, Zhang Heinyu finally got rid of the danger. Although he couldn't get out of the ground, his temperament became much better and he started to brag in his mouth. "Haozi, is my life a tough one? Even the ancestor of blood sword can't kill me, haha." Zhang Heinyu leaned against the bed, smiling like a fool. Lin Hao glared at him without any worries. "Hard, I won't bear it anymore. I won't carry you next time." Although he said this, his heart relaxed. Zhang Heinyu is his only iron brother in the world. He almost fell in the dark wind, and he couldn't get over this hurdle in his heart. Lin Hao was not idle in the following days. He accompanied Zhang Heinyu to take care of the wound, and he practiced Tiangang Ju during the tight time, trying to dig out the deeper power of the Jiadian blade. This magic weapon is indeed not simple. Just holding it in his hand can make his internal force violent. With one knife, all the mountains and rocks can crack. But the more he practiced, the more he felt that there was a bigger secret between the knife and the secret, as if there was a force calling him to go to a certain place. At this moment, news suddenly came from the town that the Blood Knife ancestor summoned the martial arts heroes in the Blood Knife Valley 100 miles away, saying that he wanted to settle all those who offended him, and he also asked to kill the little mess of Lin Hao by hand. Bok, this old thing is really not giving up. Zhang Xinyu became angry when he heard this, and was about to get up with a wound. Haozi, let's kill him directly and kill him. What's the hurry? Brother Niu, who can you beat me now? Lin Hao pressed him down, sneered with his eyes, but, since this old guy dares to call him, I have no reason to hide. When you get hurt, we will go to the Blood Knife Valley and give him some color. Half a month later, Zhang Hein유's injuries were 70% or 80% gone. Although he could not move with all his strength, he could at least walk or jump. Lin Hao did not delay anymore, and took the Jiadian blade and rushed straight to the Blood Knife Valley. This place is notorious in the world. It is said to be the old nest of the Blood Knife ancestor. There are many connections inside, and most of them are out of the way. But Lin Hao was not afraid at all. He should have forgotten the account of the Blood Sword ancestor. When I arrived at the entrance of the valley, I saw a large group of people gathered together. My eyes were cold, as if I was here to watch it, and it seemed like I was here to be there for cheap. Lin Hao, did I hear you took the Jiadian blade, and I really think you can make a fuss? The Blood Knife ancestor opened his mouth, and his voice was as harsh as a whetstone, with a cold pressure. Today, you have to hand over the magic weapon and destroy your martial arts. I may leave you all alone, if so, let the whole world look at it and anger my offsight. Old thing, don't say nothing. Lin Hao walked forward with a sneer, carrying the Jiadian blade on his shoulder. The cold light was flashing, and the air was not lost to the other party. You have caused so much innocent things and bullied so many small parties. Today I will walk the way for heaven and send you to the ground. Haha, what a kid who doesn't know how to live or die. The Blood Sword ancestor suddenly stood up, his palm slapped, and a black air turned into a sword light, rushing Lin Hao straight into him. The crowd at the scene retreated, fearing that they would be affected, so only Zhang Xinyu stood behind Lin Hao and gritted his teeth and said, Haozi, fuck him. I will put you in a pressure. Lin Hao refused to retreat and stepped forward. He slapped the blade of Zhou Tian, and the sword was as hot as a rainbow, which directly scattered the black air, and the waves also shocked the ground to crack a few tricks. He growled, his body shaped like electricity, and rushed to the stone platform. The sword light flashed and took the throat of the Blood Knife ancestor. A little trick to carve the worm. The Blood Knife ancestor snorted coldly, and with his hands he closed, a blood-red sword appeared in his hand. The blade body was filled with heavy fishy air, which was obviously made of blood sacrifices from countless people. The two swords collided and made a deafening sound. Lin Hao felt his arm numb and he was shocked to retreat a few steps under his feet. Bok, this old guy really has two tricks. Lin Hao gritted his teeth, his heart was secretly cramped, but his hands didn't stop. The Yutian blade slashed out several swords, forcing the Blood Knife ancestor to take the lead, and the stone blocks under the stage were shattered. Boy, the Jiadian blade is in your hand, it's really a waste of resources. A trace of resentment flashed in the eyes of the Blood Sword ancestor, and suddenly slashed out with a knife. The sword turned into a blood dragon, roaring and snarling towards Lin Hao. Lin Hao didn't dare to be careless, and he moved Tiangang Ju to the extreme. He was filled with heat in his dantian. The sky blade emitted a low sound, and the blade was shining brightly. He slashed it out with one knife, and the blood dragon turned into 2.5. How is this possible? The Blood Sword ancestor's face changed, and he obviously didn't expect Lin Hao to break his ultimate move. He gritted his teeth and cut, and suddenly took out a blood-red pill from it, swallowing it directly, and then his body's breath exploded, as if burning life to squeeze the last power. Lin Hao, even if I fight this life, I will still pull you on the back. The ancestor of Blood Sword roared, and the black air on the Blood Sword stormed, and the whole person turned into a bloodlight, rushing Lin Hao straight toward him, so fast that his naked eyes could hardly keep up. Haozi, be careful. Zhang Xinya roared, but he had no time to help, so he could only watch the Blood Sword ancestor approaching. Lin Hao felt nervous and knew that this was his last try. He closed his eyes, and the sea of his brain flashed from the cliff to the current kind. His anger and unwillingness ignited in an instant. He sniffed his eyes suddenly and shouted, I'm very hard-earned. I want to pull my back, but you are not worthy. The Jadian blade burst out with unprecedented light in his hand, as if it was in harmony with his heart. The sword air rose into the sky, and Lin Hao's internal force was poured into it. With one knife, the entire Blood Knife Valley seemed to be about to be split into 2.5. The bloodlight of the Blood Knife ancestor collided with the sword, and a huge sound of shocking earth. The smoke rose everywhere, which made everyone in the audience stagger. When the smoke dissipated, everyone was stunned. On the stone platform, the ancestor of Blood Knife was half kneeling on the ground, the blood knife broke into 2 pieces, and a deep bone-felt wound on his chest, and the blood was sprayed wildly, and it was obvious that he had no longer had the power of his hand. Although Lin Hao was panting and blood was hanging from the corners of his mouth, he still stood straight, and the cold light of the sky blade did not diminish, as if the war god had come to the world. Old. I will actually fail in your little hand. The ancestor of Blood Knife couldn't spit out a few words, his eyes filled with resentment, but before he finished speaking, he tilted his head and he was directly angry. The whole scene was silent, and a sudden burst of shock. Is the Blood Sword ancestor dead? Who is this kid? Even the Blood Sword ancestor can fuck him. It's too fierce. Lin Hao ignored the arguments and turned to Zhang Xinya and grinned, Brother Niu, it's done. Zhang Xinya laughed and slapped Lin Hao on the shoulder, Haozi, I know you can do it. Who dares to underestimate us in this world? As soon as the Blood Sword ancestor died, his men had already been shocked and fled and scattered. Lin Hao looked at the corpse on the stone platform, snorted coldly, and said with a slight voice, the ancestor of Blood Sword is a shameful thing. Today he is the one who deserves his own fault. Whoever dares to take the trouble with him again, the Jadian blade in my hand is not aware of it. As soon as this happened, everyone in the audience was silent and no one dared to say a word. Lin Hao's name has spread throughout the world in an instant through this battle. From a mountain village boy to a martial arts tyrant, he used the Yutian blade and Tiangang Ju to make a bloody path, becoming a legend that no one dares to mess with. A few days later, the battle details of the Blood Knife Valley were spread out with added fuel and vinegar, and Lin Hao's name became the hottest topic in the winery and tea house. Many small sects took the initiative to surrender, and some big forces also sent people to send them to the ceremony, for fear of offending this newly rising martial arts supreme. Lin Hao and Zhang Xinya returned to Qingshi town, found a small winery to sit down, ordered a few dishes of good dishes, and 2 old wines, intending to celebrate the whole scene. Zhang Xinya poured a big sip of wine and filled his face with red light. Haozi, you are the #1 person in the world now. What are your plans next? Should you build a party or be in the middle of the night? Lin Hao looked at the Jadian blade in his hand and smiled, Door sect, no. I just want those who look down on us to know that a stingy boy can make a big splash. However, the water in the rivers and lakes is very deep. Today is the ancestor of Blood Sword. I might have some more awesome enemies tomorrow. We have to continue practicing, and don't be stepped on by someone at that time. Ha, that's right. I'm going to be with you. Whoever comes, let's beat him up. Zhang Xinya put on the wine bowl, and the man touched a glass, laughing in the winery. As the sun sets west, the mountains outside the town are dyed into golden yellow. Lin Hao leaned against the window and looked at the sky far away, feeling no regrets. From climbing up from the cliff to now dominating the martial arts world, he has carried all the blood and fire along the way. No matter what challenges there are in the future, He has the Jodian blade in his hand and his brothers behind him, so what else can he be afraid of? God, thank you, I'll give me this life. Lin Hao muttered in a low voice, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he put on the wine bowl, and drank it all the time. From now on, this world is his world.